Hey friends, in this one we're going to be reviewing the 12-inch Flex Plus prompter from Prompter People.
Be seen, heard, and better understood through virtual gatherings. Elevate your message with corporate streams.
Hi everybody, I'm Noah from Corporate Streams. I've been using a teleprompter for about 8 months now. It's been pretty awesome. I have been working with Prompter People and have bought 4 tripods and 2 prompters from them. And so far I've been pretty impressed with their lineup and their setup. Let's go ahead and jump in and look at their website and look at their smallest teleprompter, which is a 12-inch prompter. Okay, so the first thing we'll do, let's go ahead and go to prompterpeople.com. You'll see their website here. Now, I do want to point out it is kind of hard to tell the difference between the prompters and the different models, so we'll do a whole separate video about the entire Prompter People lineup so that you can get a ballpark of which prompter might make the most sense for you. In this particular video, we're only going to be focusing on the 12-inch teleprompter from Prompter People. So keep that in mind. Subscribe to our channel if you want to see more from us about the different prompters from Prompter People. But yeah, let's go ahead and focus on the 12. So I'm going to jump in here to the product line. We're going to go down to the Flex Plus because that's the one we had, and I actually have it already built out here and set up on the side. So I do want to note, if I bought this prompter, it would have been $1,200 because I spent about $9,000 with Prompter People. They also sent this one for a review, so that's what I'm doing. And I have to say, I've been using this prompter a ton the last few months, just using it with Zoom calls, and I have it at my home desk set up here. So the first part of this video, we're going to go through some of the specs and talk about what this prompter can do. And then at the end, I will give my critiques and say the things that I liked and the things that I didn't like about this particular prompter. So jumping back in, let's go ahead and scroll down and look at some of the specs here. So this prompter is pretty versatile. It can be mounted onto a tripod, or it can have a standalone mount. So depending on the weight payload of your tripod, you may want the standalone, or if you have a strong enough tripod, then you can probably have it all in one. If you have the choice, I would recommend skipping the stand and getting a heavier duty tripod. Prompter People actually does make some pretty solid tripods, so go ahead and check those out. I have a separate video about a review I did comparing their 300 versus their 500 to see which one works for you, so you can see that on the Corporate Streams channel as well. So this prompter is toting a fast and easy setup. It has a hood and beam splitter that fold down for easy transport and storage. It has a removable camera extrusion that allows the tripod mount or freestanding use. It works on any size camera from palm quarter to ENG or electronic news gathering. The layout of this website and this text is a little bit funky and a little bit clunky, so I will try to summarize this the best I can as we go here. This is easily readable from 6 to 25 feet. My particular note is with this 12-inch, you want to be between 6 feet and 12 feet away from the teleprompter to read it. In my case, I'm a little bit closer, so as I shift my eyes from left and right, you can actually see my eyes moving. So if you're reading text like this, you're going to noticeably see my eyes moving across the screen. So that's why I suggest that you stay back at least 6 feet from the prompter. And that's a good rule of thumb too. If you take the prompter, which is 12 inches, right, and you divide that by 2, that's 6 inches. So that's your minimum. And because it's a 12-inch prompter, 12 feet is your maximum. At least that's my rule of thumb. I know every manufacturer says something a little bit different about that setup, but that's what my recommendation would be to you, okay? Now these monitors do have a really cool thing where they auto reverse. So you just plug in your input and it's ready to go. It knows that the monitor is going to be bouncing through a glass, and so that's already pre-programmed and pre-set up ready to go. And that's of course if you go with a monitor instead of doing the iPad cradle. Now you have the option of going with either an iPad cradle, a regular monitor, or a high bright monitor. The high bright's really nice if you're shooting outdoors or you have a lot of ambient light and you need that extra power from the monitor. If you're trying to be more affordable and maybe you already own an iPad, the iPad is also a really, really good solution, and I'll talk more about that in my own personal notes. As mentioned, the high bright is available for the 12 inches, and there is an SDI input options on the 12, 15, 17, 19, and 24 high bright models. So that's something to distinguish. If you have the high bright models, then you have the SDI input. If you do not have the high bright models, then you only have HDMI. So keep that in mind. I've had this regular monitor with HDMI. Even though HDMI is okay, professionals typically almost always prefer SDI over HDMI. All right, so there is an iPad adapter available as well, and you can easily switch between monitor sizes between the 12, 17, 19, and 24 inch. What that really means is a lot of these components and parts are interchangeable between the different models. So the key differentiating factor is really the glass or the reflector that shines the monitor back to you. So the sled and all the components, those are relatively the same for each one of these, and that's why they said that it's upgradable. You could also upgrade to a trapezoidal glass for the 15, 17, and 19 inch models. So trapezoidal glass allows you to have a wider viewing angle, and that's especially helpful if you have a 2-shot or a 3-shot where you have multiple talent reading off the same prompter. That trapezoidal glass will allow you to have a wider viewing angle for your talent, and it'll be easier for them to read. So that is an option. It is more expensive, but that's an option for you as well. So for the 12, there is no trapezoidal glass for that. There's also the FlipQ monitor software that comes with this, and it's valued at $200. That comes with the prompter that you get. So these teleprompters are made out of aluminum, so they're very lightweight, and they have a toolless design, meaning that the knobs and the things that you need to tighten are built into the tripod. And even though this website says it's a toolless design, there is one tool, or at least a set of keys that you need, and that's on the bottom plate of the tripod. When you tighten and loosen the balance screws on the bottom, you'll need some sort of tool to unscrew and screw that back in. What's nice about this sled in the back is you can slide the camera forward and back so that you could balance the teleprompter properly, and the monitor itself can also be slid forward and back to help with that counterweight as well. So if you have a big heavier camera like an ENG or broadcast old school style of camera, you can easily fit that on here and balance it out. Or if you have a lighter weight DSLR, you can slide the monitor back and also the camera back so that can balance as well on your tripod. There are some other options here for inputs as well, like VGA or composite video, but I would highly recommend sticking with HDMI, and if you can, SDI is the best solution here. What would be nice in the future is to have some sort of NDI based display so that you plug in an Ethernet cable and that could be recognized on a network as a display out. I know that's a lot to ask for right now, but hopefully in the future that's something that could be offered. As mentioned before, they do have some standalone kits, so you can order a freestanding kit, either a medium duty or a heavy duty kit. And there's also a 15mm kit, which comes with a rail block, which is kind of cool as well. There is an optional soft case or carrying travel case, and there are two options for glass. So it's either 60/40 or 70/30. The 60/40 glass is standard, but 70/30 is also an option for no added cost. 60/40 means 60% of the light comes through the lens and 40% is reflected back. That's a little bit stronger of a reflection compared to the 70/30, which allows 70% of the light to pass through and only 30% come back for reflections. So without getting into too much of the differences between those two, I would recommend that most people do a 60/40 if they have a newer camera and 70/30 if they have older cameras. The reason for that is with a 40% reflection, you get to see the teleprompter brighter through the reflection, but that also means that your camera has to work a little bit harder because you lose a little bit of light. With newer cameras, you can bump up the ISO or make up for that in another way. The 12-inch prompter is a square reflector, which is 12-inch by 12-inch. And as mentioned before, it can close down and fold up for portability. I'll also note that the back sled here or this camera riser can also be detached, so that makes it even easier for portability. So what are my thoughts about this prompter? Well, first of all, I really like it. I've been using it for a while now. My first recommendation would be to not go with one of the built-in monitors and go with an iPad if you can do that. You can use the iPad with Sidecar, which is a Mac app, which would basically extend your desktop onto the iPad. Even though this monitor is good, the resolution isn't great, and the iPad will give you a little bit more detail than this lower resolution screen. Plus, you'll also save a couple $100. Going from a regular monitor, the iPad Cradle is $900 versus the regular monitor, which is $1,200. And then the high bright monitor is $1,400. So I would suggest saving a little bit of money and just using the iPad Cradle if you already own an iPad. If you don't own an iPad, then the 12-inch monitor is fine for indoors, and the high bright would be great if you're using it indoor and outdoor. Even though the glass could fold down for portability, I felt that it couldn't come up all the way, and that was one of the things. When I had the camera mounted onto the riser, I felt like the top of the screen was being cut off. And so what I did is I built this Z riser here, and this allowed me to basically tilt the camera down or really tilt the whole prompter system up to counter that. That allowed me to see the top of the screen without feeling like anything was being cut off. So that was a major improvement for just a few bucks more. That accessory was really worth it. The sled is nice, but I am not going to be shooting with a ENG style camera with a 12-inch prompter. So what I will probably do is cut down this back sled because it's a little bit too long. And if I had it a little bit shorter, it would fit my desktop a little bit better, and I could push this camera back without bumping into as many things. The other thing I want to note is I did have to take apart this teleprompter because some of the screws were becoming loose. And so I would recommend putting some Loctite and untightening and tightening all those screws to make sure that nothing moves on you. So that would be very helpful to have that figured out. Another thing worth noting is for the teleprompter, when I have something bright that's on display, like if I pull up my camera 4 now, which is a bright white screen, it actually creates a little bit of a glow on this monitor compared to having it off. So you'll see that my blacks get a little bit washed out as I switch between these two. And that's the way the screen is reflected off of the glass. That creates that kind of little halo effect. I don't know if there's a better way to fix it. I might end up getting a donut to go on the lens to try to minimize those reflections, but just know if you have something that's super bright, like a white screen, that might happen. So that's why you typically see prompters with black backgrounds and white text, is to help minimize those kind of reflections. There is a riser that comes with this teleprompter as well, so that you can set the height of your camera correctly. As mentioned, I did have that Z plate that added a little bit of height to the camera as well. That was a great accessory that I added to the kit here. I definitely would recommend. I would say this is a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I've made several different videos about prompter people's teleprompters. So if you want to see that, you can check out this playlist here. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.